The sunset-colored tequila sunrise in Kevin's hand swirled, reflecting the last streaks of golden light dissolving over the Pacific Ocean. He leaned back in a plush lounge chair, one leg casually draped over the edge of the infinity pool that glittered like a giant mirror, swallowing the sky whole. The salty Malibu breeze, carrying the faint, sweet scent of jasmine, drifted through the open space, caressing his sun-kissed, athletic skin. From the balcony of this presidential suite, he had a panoramic view of the entire picturesque cove, where pristine white yachts bobbed lazily on the water. Everything was perfect, a perfection that bordered on arrogant. He took a sip of his cocktail. The sharp kick of tequila blended with the sweet tang of orange, and the tart whisper of grenadine. It was the taste of success, the flavor of a victor. He smiled, a triumphant, self-satisfied grin. This day had finally come. He pulled out the latest smartphone, scrolled to his mother, Helen's, number, and hit call. He wasn't calling to check in, nor to say he was safe. He was calling to issue an order, to clear the final obstacle from his wide-open future. "Hey, Mom, it's me." His voice was devoid of emotion, as cold and decisive as a corporate memo. "Listen to me carefully." Helen, on the other end, was probably still gathering her wits. "What is it, dear?" "It's nothing. Just something that needs to be done," he said, his tone as light as if he were discussing throwing out old furniture. "I need you to kick Diana out of the house. Right now, her and her daughter." He paused, as if to let each word land with the force of a hammer blow. "Throw all their stuff out on the street. Change the locks immediately. I don't want to see a trace of them when I get back. It's an eyesore." He didn't give his mother a chance to react, continuing to unfurl his perfect plan with a voice dripping with smug satisfaction. "I'm getting remarried, Mom, to Vivian, the chairman's daughter, my new business partner. She's pregnant. It's a boy, a grandson to carry on the family name. I have to do right by her, give her the status she deserves. Get ready. I'm bringing her home to meet you this weekend. And Mom, make sure the house is spotless. We don't want people talking. New wife, pregnant, a son, clean the house." Everything was perfectly arranged in his mind. A plan that had no room for the wife who had stood by him through years of struggle, no room for the little girl who still called him daddy with her whole heart. He had calculated everything, forgetting only one small detail. Did the house he was ordering to be cleaned still belong to him? What are you saying, Kevin?" After a moment of stunned silence, Helen's voice finally came through, but it wasn't the joyful exclamation her son expected. It was a strangled shriek, a cry filled with panic and disbelief. "Are you insane? Where are you? Do you have any idea what's happened at home?" Kevin frowned. He didn't understand his mother's reaction. He thought she'd be jumping for joy at the news of a grandson and a wealthy daughter-in-law. "What are you talking about, Mom? I'm being serious. Just do as I say. I'll handle everything else later." He was starting to lose his patience. "Handle what?" Helen's voice was no longer a shriek, but a desperate, agonized wail, the sound of ultimate despair. "You might as well just kill me now, son." And then she screamed the fateful words into the phone, a sentence like a sledgehammer blow that struck the pinnacle of success Kevin had just built for himself, shattering it into a million pieces. "She sold the house. I was just thrown out onto the street by the new owners." The tequila sunrise slipped from Kevin's grasp, shattering against the expensive Italian tile. The orange-red liquid pooled on the floor, looking like a splatter of blood in the twilight. A roar filled his ears, drowning out the gentle crash of the waves and the soft lounge music. All he could hear was his mother's voice, echoing, drilling into his mind like a power tool. Sold the house. Thrown out onto the street. How was that possible? How could she? He stood frozen, his triumphant expression morphing into shock, then paling into a mask of pure terror. The sky in the distance was still cruelly beautiful, but his world, the perfect world he had just constructed, had utterly collapsed in a single, brutal moment. Dear friends, the story you have just begun to follow may contain fictionalized elements, creatively crafted with the assistance of artificial intelligence. Our sole purpose is to take you on a dramatic emotional journey, while also imparting profound lessons about human nature, the value of sacrifice, and the hidden strength within every woman when pushed to the breaking point. We hope that through each part of this story, you will find empathy and meaningful reflections for yourselves. And now, the betrayer's nightmare has only just begun. Part 2. The shock from his mother's call sent Kevin stumbling. He grabbed the clear glass railing of the balcony, gasping for air, but the fresh sea breeze seemed unable to penetrate his constricted chest. Sold the house. Diana, his always gentle, submissive wife, the woman he thought he could manipulate as easily as a puppet. How could she have done something so audacious? Where did she get his signature? In his panic, memories of their 8 years together flooded his mind, not sweet recollections, but a chain of calculations and exploitations he had so skillfully concealed. A play where he was the director, certain he held the winning script. He remembered the day he first met me at an architectural exhibition. Back then, I was a rising star in the industry, a young architect who had just graduated summa cum laude from a top university. My debut design having already won the top prize in a prestigious national competition. I stood on the winner's podium, holding a crystal trophy, surrounded by camera flashes and a chorus of praise. The Diana of that day was radiant, confident, and full of ambition. And Kevin? He was just a junior sales rep, tagging along with his boss to the event. He approached me with a polished demeanor, with words as sweet as honey, with an admiration for my talent that seemed astonishingly sincere. He said he was blown away by my intellect and independence, that he'd never met a woman so beautiful and brilliant. He wasn't like the arrogant trust fund kids who only knew how to flaunt their family's wealth. He gave me the feeling of a man who truly understood and cherished my soul. And I, a woman who only knew the straight lines and sharp angles of concrete and steel, fell completely for that sophisticated warmth. Our love was a whirlwind, and I, drunk on happiness, poured everything I had into building our nest. That house, a charming mini-mansion in a new, upscale suburban development, wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was my youth, my pride, the first masterpiece into which I had poured my entire heart and soul. The entire prize money from the competition, a substantial inheritance from my grandparents, and all my hard-earned savings, everything went into that house. It was a testament to my success and my independence. But then, the day before we went to get our marriage license, Kevin took my hand. His eyes were so sincere I couldn't possibly doubt him. "Diana," he said, "I know this house is your life's work. It's everything you have. But, you know how men are. We have our pride. I don't want people to look at me later and say I'm incompetent, that I have to live off my wife in my wife's house. It would kill me." He let out a long, tormented sigh. What if you put my name on the deed with yours? It's just on paper, just to help me save a little face with my friends and family. I promise you, no matter what happens, this house will always be yours. Besides, what's yours is mine, right? We're about to be a family. Every word, every syllable, struck my fatal flaw, my love for him, and my desire to protect the pride of the man I loved. At that moment, I, a woman brilliant on blueprints, but hopelessly naive in love, nodded without a second thought. I believed that a small gesture to protect my husband's ego was what a good wife should do. I signed the papers with my own hand, personally handing the wolf in sheep's clothing half the ownership of my home, never knowing it was the biggest mistake of my life, the beginning of my tragedy. After we married, life was peaceful at first. I continued my work as an architect. My reputation grew, and my income was more than enough to provide our family with a comfortable life. Then our daughter, Annie, was born. I decided to put my career on hold, to retreat and become the woman behind the man. I thought my sacrifice was worthwhile. I never knew that my retreat was the very opportunity that allowed the greed and selfishness of Kevin and his mother to flourish. Every memory now replayed in Kevin's mind with crystal clarity, not with remorse, but with a furious rage. He was enraged because the prey he had so carefully cultivated for 8 years, the docile lamb about to be led to slaughter, had suddenly grown fangs and claws and escaped. How dare she? How could she have known his plan? Those questions burned in his mind, turning his initial bewilderment into a searing resentment. Where had he miscalculated? What move had caused such a perfect plan to crumble at the last minute? Kevin racked his brain, searching for a crack, a sign that his plan had been exposed. He had always been so careful, always playing the part of the loving husband and doting father. He had never left any loose ends. But then he remembered. The final straw hadn't been a loud argument or a dramatic confrontation. It had come from silence. My terrifying silence on the evening before he left for his business trip. That night, as I was reviewing our monthly expenses to plan the family budget, a habit I maintained to ensure our comfortable life, I stumbled upon an anomaly. A very large sum of money, nearly $250,000, had been withdrawn from our joint savings account. This account was where I kept most of the income from freelance projects I did from home, a fund for emergencies and for Annie's future education. Kevin knew about it, but he rarely touched it. As I handled all household expenses, my heart skipped a beat. $250,000 was not a small amount. It had vanished without a word. I brought the bank statement to him. He was busy selecting his most stylish suits for his trip. Kevin, did you withdraw money from our joint savings? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, not wanting to create tension before he left. He flinched, a barely perceptible movement that you would miss if you weren't looking closely. But he quickly regained his composure. He turned and walked over, pulling me into a hug that, in retrospect, felt utterly fake and calculated. Oh, honey, I completely forgot to tell you. I ran into an old buddy the other day. He's got this incredible real estate investment opportunity in Hawaii. The returns are huge, Diana. I decided to pull the money and go in with him. Think of it as an investment in our family's future. I was going to wait until we saw the profits and surprise you, but you caught me. He laughed, a bright, charming laugh, and gently pinched my nose. My wife, always the careful bookkeeper. His explanation sounded plausible, sweet, and full of beautiful visions for our future. But for some reason, a woman's intuition, an architect's intuition that demanded precision and logic in all things told me something was wrong. What kind of project needs capital that urgently? I thought you said the real estate market was slowing down. Why didn't you talk to me before deciding on such a large amount? I asked again, a hint of suspicion now audible in my voice. The smile on Kevin's face tightened. He let go of me, his expression turning to one of annoyance, an annoyance he had barely bothered to hide in recent months. Diana, you're questioning me again? I worked my tail off out there, dealing with so much pressure, all to give you and Annie a better life. Do I really have to report every single detail to you? Don't you trust me? Those two words, trust me, were his weapon, a sharp dagger he always used to deflect and shut down a conversation whenever he was cornered. He knew I loved him and feared his disapproval, feared being seen as an unreasonable wife. As always, I fell silent. I chastised myself for being too sensitive, for doubting the husband who supposedly loved me so much. But that night, I couldn't sleep. His words, his uncharacteristic irritation when questioned, had planted a seed of doubt in my heart that I couldn't erase. The next morning, after he had left for the airport, after I had played the part of the doting wife seeing her husband off, I did something I had never dared to do before. I took a deep breath and called Kevin's best friend, the one he claimed to be investing with. The friend's answer left me frozen, as if the world had crumbled beneath my feet. An investment in Hawaii? I have no idea what you're talking about, Diana. I haven't seen Kevin more than a couple of times in the last few months. He's been busy with his new girlfriend. I heard they're even getting married soon. You didn't know? New girlfriend. Getting married. The friend's casual words were like a sledgehammer to my head. All the scattered puzzle pieces suddenly snapped into place. The increasingly frequent business trips, the secretive phone calls late at night, the faint scent of a strange perfume on his clothes when he came home, and his growing indifference towards me and our daughter. It all made sense now. This business trip to Singapore wasn't for a business deal. It was a lavish vacation with his mistress to plan their wedding. And that $250,000 wasn't an investment in our family's future. It was the seed money for his new future with another woman. The brutal truth hit me like a bucket of ice water, waking me from an 8-year-long dream. 8 years of sacrifice. 8 years of trust, all for a blatant betrayal and deception. Pain and rage coiled in my stomach, threatening to knock me down. But no. When I saw Annie playing innocently in her room, I knew I couldn't fall. My time of silent suffering was over. It was time for the lamb to shed her fleece and become a lioness, to protect her cub and take back everything that had been stolen. The initial agony quickly subsided, replaced by a chillingly cold clarity. I didn't cry. I didn't smash things. Tears were a luxury, a useless indulgence at this point. I sat silently in my home office, the room filled with my old blueprints and architectural models, a place I had temporarily forgotten in my role as a full-time wife and mother. The morning sun streamed in, illuminating the sharp lines of the miniature buildings projects that were once my pride, my entire world. And I suddenly realized where I had lost myself. I used to be Diana, the talented, independent, and proud architect. It was my blind sacrifice and retreat that had turned me into a plump, easy target for a predator disguised as a husband. But now, things were different. The hunter had revealed himself, and the prey had decided she would no longer run. I would set a trap of my own. A bigger trap. One designed with the same meticulous precision as an architectural blueprint. A trap that, once sprung, they could never escape. I didn't rush to call Kevin and scream at him, nor did I hunt down the other woman. I knew that would only demean me, turning me into a pathetic loser in their eyes. This war couldn't be won with tears and noise. It had to be won with intellect, with the law, and with the very money they craved. A plan began to form in my mind, as clear and sharp as a scalpel. I had to get back everything that belonged to me, not just the house, but my career, my dignity, and most importantly, my daughter's future. I would not let Annie grow up with a deceitful father and a venomous grandmother. She deserved a better life, one surrounded by honesty and genuine love. The first thing I did was contact Mr. Mitchell, the best civil and real estate attorney in the city, and an old, dear friend of my late father. I trusted his wisdom and professional ethics. I arranged to meet him that afternoon at a quiet coffee shop. I laid out my entire story, from how I paid for and built the house, but naively let Kevin be a co-owner, to the evidence of his deceit and his plan to abandon me and our daughter. I hid nothing, not even my own foolishness and blindness. After I finished, Mr. Mitchell was silent for a long time. He looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and respect. He didn't judge. He only analyzed. Diana, legally, this is a difficult situation. The house was acquired during the marriage and has both your names on the deed, so it's considered marital property. Even if you can prove most of the money was yours, dividing it will be a complex and lengthy process. And since he's planning to take it all, he certainly won't compromise easily. So, what do I do, Mr. Mitchell? I can't lose that house. It's all I have to provide for Annie. I asked, my voice filled with anxiety. Mr. Mitchell smiled, a shrewd, enigmatic smile. The law always has paths for those who know how to think, Diana. His name is on the deed, which means he has the right to dispose of half the property. But it also means that with the written consent of both spouses, the house can be legally sold. A bold idea sparked in my mind, an idea that just days ago would have been unthinkable. You mean, I can sell the house without him being present? Exactly, Mr. Mitchell nodded, his eyes lighting up with approval. But the key is his signature. We need his voluntary signature on a power of attorney or a consent to sell document, and that signature must be legally notarized. But how is that possible? He's in Singapore with his mistress. How can he sign anything? And even if he could, he would never agree to sell the home he's plotting to steal. This, Mr. Mitchell said, his voice encouraging, is where you must use your intelligence and your acting skills. He's preoccupied with his own scheme, which means he's arrogant and underestimates you. Create a trap, Diana. A reason compelling enough, attractive enough, that he'll sign the papers without a shred of suspicion. Appeal to his greed. That conversation with Mr. Mitchell gave me a path forward, my only way out. I knew what I had to do. The plan to clean up my life had officially begun. I wouldn't just take back the house. I would make him pay the price for his own arrogance and bottomless greed. My performance was about to begin, and I would play the part of the naive, trusting wife to perfection. It would be the role of a lifetime. The opportunity came sooner than I expected, as if fate itself wanted to help me deliver justice. That evening, Kevin initiated a video call. He probably wanted to check if I was still sulking over the $250,000 misunderstanding and to continue playing the part of the model husband on a business trip. He appeared on screen in a luxurious hotel room, but he lied and said it was a conference room at the partner's office, claiming he had to work late to finalize the contract. He asked about me and Annie with a sickeningly sweet tone, playing the loving husband and father perfectly. I played my part, just as flawlessly, a skill I never knew I possessed until I was cornered. I acted sad and tired, telling him I'd thought it over and felt guilty for doubting him. I told him how well-behaved Annie was, how much she missed her daddy, and wanted him to come home soon. Every word was steeped in weakness and dependency, the exact image of the wife he always wanted to see. After the fake preamble, when I saw he was completely convinced of my submission, I cast my line, a lure calculated down to the last detail. Kevin, I said, my voice hesitant, as if I were about to reveal a huge secret. I haven't been sleeping well these past few days, and it's not just because I miss you. I've come across a massive business opportunity. As I predicted, Kevin's eyes lit up. Greed is an instinct that cannot be hidden. He immediately leaned closer to the screen, intrigued. What is it, honey? Tell me. My wife is so talented, finding business deals even while at home. It's a design project for a high-end eco-resort in Miami, Kevin. A major international corporation is funding it. I know a senior manager there, a friend. She said they're looking for a unique design with a distinct American modern feel. She's seen my old portfolio and loves my work. She thinks if I submit a proposal, my chances of winning the contract are extremely high. I painted a dazzling picture, a world-class project perfect for an ambitious architect. Wow, really? That's amazing, Diana. Kevin exclaimed, his excitement genuine. What happens if you win? If I win, I said, deliberately lowering my voice. Not only will my reputation skyrocket, but the profit, it's enormous, Kevin. Big enough for us to buy several more properties. I threw out a staggering number, a figure large enough to make a greedy man like Kevin's eyes widen. But there's one problem. What problem? Tell me, I'll figure it out, he said eagerly. To enter the bidding, my firm needs to show proof of financial standing. Specifically, we need to have a certain amount of capital on hand to guarantee the project's timeline. I've run the numbers. Our savings aren't enough. The only way is to mortgage our house to get a loan from the bank. Hearing the words mortgage our house, Kevin hesitated for a fraction of a second. The house was his ultimate prize. He wouldn't risk it easily, but his greed quickly overpowered his caution. He figured that with my talent, the chances of winning were high. If I won, he wouldn't just get the house, but a massive profit as well. And even if I lost, the house would still be there. The bank couldn't just foreclose immediately. He thought he held all the cards. Are you sure about this project, Diana? Is it risky? He asked, trying to sound like a cautious, responsible husband. I'm sure, Kevin. I've done all the research. It's almost a guaranteed win. The only thing is, I need a power of attorney with your signature to handle the paperwork with the bank. But you're so far away, and the deadline is tight. We only have a few days left to submit the application. I left the sentence hanging, creating a false sense of urgency, giving him no time to think. Kevin mulled it over for a moment. The vision of a colossal sum of money, of a life-changing windfall, completely clouded his judgment. He made his decision decisively. All right, no problem. You prepare all the documents and FedEx them over to me. I'll sign them and send them right back. My wife's big break is our whole family's future. Of course, I'll support you. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing out loud. The fish had taken the bait more easily than I could have ever imagined. The very next day, Mr. Mitchell and I drafted a thick stack of documents. On the outside, it looked exactly like a bank loan application packet, filled with complex project proposals and financial plans, all professionally fabricated by me. But hidden cleverly in the middle of the stack, sandwiched between two similar-looking pages about authorizing me to work with the bank, was the real prize: a notarized power of attorney and a consent to sell agreement. A document giving me full authority to act on his behalf in any and all transactions related to the sale of the house. I carefully marked all the signature lines with small red arrows, placed everything in a large envelope, and sent it via overnight express to Kevin's hotel address. The next 2 days were agonizing. My nerves were stretched thin. What if he read it carefully? What if someone with him was clear-headed enough to warn him? But on the afternoon of the third day, the courier returned with the packet. My hands trembled as I opened it. And there they were. In every spot I had marked, including the page for the consent to sell the house, was Kevin's signature, clear and decisive. The signature of a man so lost in his dreams of wealth that he never realized he had just signed the death warrant for his own gold-digging career. I looked at that signature, feeling no sense of triumph, only a bitter irony. It turned out that to fool a con man, sometimes all you needed to do was appeal to his own boundless greed. With Kevin's golden signature in hand, I wasted no time. The battle now became a race against the clock. I knew I had to act fast, before Kevin realized something was amiss or before he returned from his trip. Every passing day was a risk. I immediately contacted a major real estate firm. A trusted partner Mr. Mitchell had recommended. They had everything prepared. A buyer was already lined up, a successful businessman, a friend of Mr. Mitchell's, who was genuinely looking to buy a mansion in that area and was willing to pay a premium for immediate possession. Everything was done with lightning speed, yet with the utmost professionalism and legality. With a fully executed and notarized power of attorney, I had the full legal right to represent Kevin in the transaction. That very afternoon, at the title company's office, witnessed by a notary public, the purchase agreement was signed. I put my pen to the paper without a moment's hesitation. Each stroke of the pen was a release, a final cut of the ties that bound me to my past. The entire proceeds from the sale of the house, a colossal sum that Kevin could probably never earn in his lifetime, were wired directly into a new bank account I had already set up. An account solely in my name, with the highest level of security. I watched the long string of numbers appear on my phone screen as the bank notification came in. My heart felt no ripple of joy. This money should have been the fruit of a happy family, a solid foundation for my daughter's future. Now, it was just a tool, a spoil of war in a battle I never wanted, a battle to reclaim my dignity. But I knew there was no time for sentimentality. The next step was even more crucial. I had to clean up, not the house, but my life. I had to remove myself from this place, from this space filled with deceitful memories and pain. I called a professional, full-service moving company, requesting their largest crew to come immediately. When the team arrived, they were surprised by my rather strange request. I pointed to all the furniture in the house, the expensive imported leather sofas, the massive flat-screen TV, the state-of-the-art sound system, the collection of fine liquors and luxury watches that Kevin loved to show off to his friends. All of this, I said, my voice clear and devoid of any attachment. I'm not taking any of it. You can sell it, donate it, do whatever you want with it. I just need you to clear this place out as quickly as possible. The only things I kept were everything from Annie's room. Her princess bed, the closet full of pretty dresses, her toys, her storybooks. I would take my child's entire world with me, leaving nothing behind. As for myself, I packed a single small suitcase with a few simple outfits, my important personal documents, and my old architectural drawings, the things that reminded me of who I was before I became Kevin's wife. Before the title wife of director Kevin had faded my own identity. I wanted nothing that would remind me of the past 8 years. I wanted a clean break, a completely new page. All of Kevin's and his mother's belongings, from their clothes and shoes to their personal items, I left untouched. I wanted them to confront the consequences of their actions themselves, to clean up the ruins of their own greed and betrayal. Throughout the entire process, Helen, my mother-in-law, suspected nothing. She thought I was just clearing out the house to prepare for the big project I had invented. She even walked around with her hands clasped behind her back, pointing and directing like she was the lady of the manor. Be careful with that ceramic vase. You break it, you buy it. You boys, work faster. And when you're done, make sure you polish the floors. We have important guests coming this weekend. I just remained silent and did as I was told, a profound contempt filling my heart. She was gleefully awaiting her new daughter-in-law and her precious grandson, never knowing she herself was about to be evicted from the castle she was so proud of. Everything was done in a single day. The vast, magnificent house became eerily empty, filled only with cold spaces and the echo of my footsteps. That last night, I didn't sleep in our marital bedroom, a place tainted with lies. I held Annie and slept in her little room, the only room that still felt warm. I hugged her tightly, inhaling the familiar sweet scent of her hair. Starting tomorrow, we're going to start a new life, sweetheart. A life with no more lies, no more disrespect. It will just be the two of us, and Mommy promises to give you the best of everything in this world. On the day of the handover, the sky was unusually clear and blue, as if nature itself wanted to wash away all the gloom that had shrouded my life. I woke up early and made Annie a special breakfast with all her favorite things. She was still oblivious to the coming storm, innocently asking why all the furniture was gone. I just smiled and told her we were moving to a new, even more beautiful house. A place just for the two of us. Her eyes lit up with excitement. After breakfast, I dropped Annie off at my parents' house. They were already on a long vacation I had arranged for them, but their trusted housekeeper was there. I didn't want my daughter to witness the chaotic and ugly scene that was about to unfold. I wanted to protect her innocent soul from being tainted by the calculations and cruelty of adults. Returning to the house, I was alone, facing Helen. She was lounging in the living room, her feet up on the coffee table, eating fruit and watching a sappy soap opera, looking as relaxed as a queen in her domain. "Where'd you take Annie?" she asked, her eyes not even leaving the TV screen, her voice as condescending and bossy as ever. "I took her to play with her friends, Mom. I have to go out for a bit later, too," I replied respectfully. It would be the last time I would ever have to bow my head to this woman. At exactly 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. The sound was like a starting gun, signaling the fall of the curtain. I took a deep breath and calmly went to open the door. Outside stood Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Anderson, the new owner of the house, a dapper, middle-aged man, and two uniformed security guards, tall and imposing. I greeted them with a nod and stepped aside, making way for Justice to enter. Helen, annoyed by the noise, came out, still chewing on a piece of apple. Who's making all that racket? Don't you know people are trying to relax? Diana. If these are your guests... She trailed off, freezing as she saw the group of strangers with their serious expressions. Who are you people? What are you doing in my house without asking? She shrieked, her voice shrill. The years of her coarse market vendor past impossible to wash away. Mr. Mitchell calmly stepped forward, his dignified presence completely overshadowing her aggression. He held out a file of documents with official red seals. Good morning, Mrs. Thompson. We are here to legally execute the handover of this property. This house was sold to my client, Mr. Anderson, yesterday. All paperwork is legal and valid, bearing the consent signatures of both registered owners, Mr. Kevin Thompson and Mrs. Diana Thompson. As per the contract, today is the day of possession. We kindly request that you gather your personal belongings and vacate the premises within the next 2 hours. Every word from the lawyer was clear and firm, like invisible hammer blows raining down on Helen's head. Her mouth fell open, her eyes bulged, and her face went from flushed with anger to deathly pale with disbelief. Sold the house? You're lying. This is my son's house. It can't be sold. Diana, get over here. What is this devil's work you've done? She spun around and screamed in my face, her eyes looking like she wanted to eat me alive. I just stood there, watching her quietly. My gaze no longer held the fear or submission of the past 8 years. There was only a cold, calm detachment. Seeing my lack of reaction, Helen grew even more frantic. She lunged at me, her calloused hand raised to strike. But the two security guards moved like lightning, stepping between us and each grabbing one of her arms. Ma'am, please remain calm and cooperate, one said, his voice firm and emotionless. Unable to get to me, Helen resorted to her usual tactic. Playing the victim, she collapsed onto the polished marble floor, beating her fists on the ground and wailing at the top of her lungs. Oh, heavens, what have I done to deserve this? I raised a snake in my own home. My godless daughter-in-law has conspired with outsiders to sell my son's house. Everybody, come and see. This venomous snake is throwing her own mother-in-law out onto the street. She put on a perfect performance, tears and snot streaming down her face, her voice choked with theatrical despair. But unfortunately for her, today's audience wasn't the easily fooled neighbors, but officers of the law. Mr. Mitchell said nothing, merely signaling to the security team. They began to enter and swiftly pack the remaining belongings of Helen and Kevin, their clothes, personal items, into pre-prepared cardboard boxes. In her panic and helplessness, Helen scrambled for her phone and dialed Kevin's number. And that was the moment that Kevin, luxuriously relaxing by the sea, dreaming of his glorious future, received that fateful call. I could just imagine the look on his face as he heard his mother's hysterical screams through the phone. She sold the house. I was just thrown out onto the street by the new owners. Finally, after a session of useless screaming and cursing, Helen was escorted out of the house by the two security guards. She stood forlornly on the sidewalk, next to a few cardboard boxes that contained the entirety of her and her son's remaining worldly possessions. She stared at me with eyes full of pure hatred, as if wanting to curse me to the bone. I just quietly turned away and got into the car that was waiting for me. The car door closed, sealing me off from the past, from the venomous curses. The play was over, and those who had sown the wind were now beginning to reap the whirlwind. It is a bitter thing to witness a mother who, instead of teaching her son right from wrong, colludes with and encourages his immoral behavior. Helen's downfall today was not just my doing. It was the inevitable result of a life of selfishness, greed, and inhumanity. A home built with love and sacrifice, when exploited and disrespected, will sooner or later collapse. The departure of the wife in this story is not an end, but the beginning of a journey to reclaim her own value and dignity. And the betrayer's nightmare has only just begun. What a cruel, stark reality will he face when he rushes back from his paradise? Helen stood frozen on the sidewalk. The harsh Los Angeles sun beat down on her head, making her feel dizzy and faint. Car horns and the rush of people hurrying past were like an indifferent river, no one paying any mind to the middle-aged woman standing lost beside a pile of messy boxes. Just minutes ago, She was the mistress of a luxurious mansion, enjoying an upper-class life. Now, she was no different from a homeless person, evicted from the very place she had so proudly boasted about to all her relatives and friends. The sudden, brutal contrast was more than she could accept. The initial shock gave way to a furious rage and a searing humiliation. She pulled out her phone, her hands trembling, and frantically called Kevin again. But the line just rang endlessly. Kevin had turned off his phone. Perhaps he, too, was in a state of extreme panic, unsure how to face this new reality. Or worse, he simply didn't want to be bothered by his mother's wailing. Unable to reach her son, she started calling every relative and friend she knew. She cried and pathetically recounted how she had been scammed by her evil daughter-in-law, who had colluded with outsiders to throw her out while her son was away working hard. She painted me as a venomous snake, an ungrateful wretch, while positioning herself and Kevin as pitiful victims. She hoped someone would stand up for her, help her get justice, or at least offer her a place to stay. But all she received were perfunctory words of comfort, weary sighs, and evasions. No one wanted to get involved in a messy family dispute, especially when they all knew, to some extent, that the house had been built by my efforts. They might not have known the whole story, but they weren't stupid. Look, Helen, it's best to let the husband and wife sort it out themselves. It's hard for outsiders to interfere. Oh, you poor thing, just try to find a temporary place to stay and wait for Kevin to get back. The coldness of human nature made her even more bitter, realizing that without money and status, the relationships she had been so proud of were worthless. Finally, with no other choice, she had to swallow her tears, hail a U-Haul truck, load up her boxes, and make her way back to the dilapidated old apartment complex in a run-down part of the city. It was where she had lived before moving into my castle, a place she had once scorned as damp and cramped, vowing never to return. Now, it was her only refuge. Meanwhile, somewhere in the sky, Kevin was on the earliest flight back to Los Angeles. He had to lie to Vivian and her family, telling them there was a corporate emergency. It was a clumsy lie, full of holes. Throughout the flight, he couldn't sit still. His mind raced with 1,000 unanswered questions. How did Diana sell the house? Where did she get his signature? And most importantly, where had she gone with that enormous sum of money? He tried to reassure himself that it was all just a misunderstanding, that Diana would never have the guts to do something like this. Maybe she was just angry that she'd found out about his affair and was pulling a stunt to scare him. He was confident that as soon as he got back, a few sweet words would get everything back on track. But the instincts of a lifelong deceiver told him that this time, he was the one who had been deceived, led by the nose in spectacular fashion. As soon as his flight landed at LAX, he didn't go home, or rather, to the old house. He drove straight to the title company, where he and I had handled the house's paperwork. He hoped to find some mistake, some legal loophole to sue and reverse the situation. But when the escrow officer pulled up the records and placed the notarized and recorded grant deed in front of him, with his own unmistakable signature next to mine, his last shred of hope vanished into thin air. "This is your signature, sir. No doubt about it," the officer said confidently. "And here is the fully executed power of attorney and consent to sell, also bearing your signature, granting Mrs. Thompson full authority to act on your behalf in this transaction." All procedures were perfectly legal. Kevin stared at his own signature. He remembered it now. That day before his trip, Diana had given him a thick file. He had been distracted, busy texting Vivian, his mind soaring with visions of a wealthy future with his new wife. He had only glanced at the cover page, saw the words bank loan application and project authorization, and signed without a second thought. He had been too arrogant, too dismissive of the wife he thought he understood so completely. He had signed his own death warrant. Rage erupted, overwhelming his fear and panic. He slammed his hand on the counter, roaring like a wounded animal, ignoring the shocked stares of everyone around. "Diana, you dare to trick me?" He stormed out of the office, his mind consumed by a single thought. He had to find me. He had to make me pay. He frantically called my number, only to be met with the cold, automated voice. "The number you have dialed is not in service." He drove to my parents' house, but the neighbors said they had left for a long European cruise a week ago, a trip I had arranged. He went to my old architectural firm, but they said I had resigned a long time ago. It was as if I had vanished from the face of the earth, leaving no trace behind. Kevin was losing his mind. He drove aimlessly around the city, to every place he thought I might be, but it was useless. His nightmare was only just beginning. Unable to find me, What other horrifying consequences awaited him? Did he have any idea that the prey he was hunting was actually perched in a much higher position, silently watching and setting the next traps? While Kevin was frantically and fruitlessly searching for me, like a wild animal that had lost both its prey and its lair, Annie and I had already begun our new life, a life he could never touch. I wasn't running away. I had simply chosen a place his narrow mind could never imagine. It was a luxurious penthouse apartment, occupying the entire top floor of a skyscraper in the heart of Beverly Hills, a symbol of success and power, with a view that encompassed the entire sprawling city below. I had secretly purchased it the day I received the money from the house sale. A swift, decisive move. I wanted to give my daughter the best and safest environment, and to reward myself after so many years of silent sacrifice, after 8 years of being caged in a gilded prison. The penthouse was designed in a minimalist yet sophisticated style, with a palette of warm whites and oak, a reflection of my own architectural taste. Every piece of furniture was new, handpicked by me, from the white grand piano in the corner of the living room to the contemporary art on the walls. There was no trace of the past, not a single corner that evoked painful memories. Standing on the breezy balcony, with its small, beautiful hanging garden, I held my daughter in my arms and looked down at the city glittering with night lights. I felt a strange sense of peace and freedom. The rushing traffic below seemed so small, just like the sorrows of my past, now receded and insignificant. Mommy, our new house is so beautiful. It's so high up, Annie exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with delight. She pressed her face against the large glass panel, gazing down in awe. Are we going to live here forever, Mommy? Yes, my love, I said, kissing her soft hair, my heart filled with a gentle happiness. From now on, this is our home, a place with only joy and laughter. But I knew that to achieve complete and lasting peace, I couldn't just stop at selling the house and moving. The war wasn't over. Kevin was not one to give up easily. His patriarchal pride and a gold digger's greed would not allow him to accept defeat. He would surely find a way to retaliate, to reclaim what he believed was his especially custody of our daughter. He would use Annie as a tool to pressure me, to make demands, to continue to bind me to him. I couldn't be complacent. I could not let my daughter become a pawn in his game. As soon as we were settled, I went straight back to Mr. Mitchell's law office. This time, I wasn't a pitiful wife seeking help, but a major client, ready to pay whatever it took for the best protection and a flawless offensive strategy. Mr. Mitchell, I want to file for divorce immediately, I stated decisively, placing a file I had prepared on his desk. And I want full, sole custody of Annie. I don't want her to have any connection with a father like him. Rest assured. Diana, Mr. Mitchell replied after reviewing my documents. With what he has done, and with your current solid financial standing, the court will undoubtedly rule in your favor. But to ensure an absolute victory, to leave him no room to maneuver, we need more evidence. Hard evidence of his unfitness as a father, of his true character. I understood. I needed to expose Kevin's true face, completely not just as an adulterer, but as an irresponsible, morally bankrupt individual, unworthy of even basic respect. I didn't just want to win. I wanted him to lose so thoroughly that he would never be able to hold his head up again. I need your help with one more thing, I said, my voice cold and firm. I want to hire the most professional team of private investigators. Not to watch me, but to tail Kevin and that woman, Vivian. I want to know everything about them, every move, every connection, every dark secret, every shady deal. I want a complete picture of their deception. Mr. Mitchell nodded, a look of admiration in his eyes for my decisiveness and strength. The woman before him was no longer the weeping young wife from a week ago. Leave it to me. I have an excellent team, discreet and efficient. Within a week, you'll have everything you need. I left the law office feeling much lighter. The net had been cast, an invisible net of legal and informational warfare, just waiting for the beast to walk right into it. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, that Kevin would resort to dirty tricks, but I was no longer afraid. I was not alone. I had my daughter, a strong financial foundation, and a team of legal professionals ready for any scenario. Kevin, you once thought I was a naive little lamb, easily outsmarted. Now, watch this lamb transform into the alpha wolf and hunt you down. Mr. Mitchell's investigators worked with astonishing efficiency, like a precise, cold machine. After just a few days, they sent me a thick, detailed report on Vivian, Kevin's mistress. What I read went far beyond my darkest imaginings. It wasn't just a story of a third party breaking up a family. It was a sophisticated, systematic conspiracy of fraud. Vivian, full name, Vivian Chow, was not the daughter of any wealthy corporate chairman. Her father was just a mid-level sales manager at that real estate company. She had skillfully crafted a persona of a high society heiress, a rich kid, to attract wealthy prey. The luxury apartment she lived in was rented. The designer handbags, the expensive clothes, all paid for by the men who were infatuated with her. Kevin wasn't her first victim, nor her only one. The report listed a long string of men Vivian had been involved with over the past few years. They all had one thing in common. They were married men with status and assets, but with unhappy marriages or a thirst for something new. Vivian played the part of a young, innocent girl in need of protection, or a hot, understanding lover, depending on the target. She was a master actress, a professional scam artist, a wolf in sheep's clothing. She was not pregnant. The ultrasound she showed Kevin was a high-quality fake. Her goal in getting involved with Kevin was nothing more than to target the assets she believed he would get after divorcing me. She had heard about my reputation in the architectural world, knew the value of our house, and had conspired with Kevin to stage the perfect play. And Kevin, the self-proclaimed clever hunter, was nothing but a clueless puppet in the hands of a superior player. He thought he was conquering a gold mine, but in reality, he was just a tool for Vivian to dig another one. But what shocked me most, what truly disgusted me, were the photos captured by security cameras in the parking garage of the resort where Kevin and Vivian had their business trip. The photos showed that besides Kevin, Vivian was secretly meeting another man during their vacation, usually when Kevin was in his meetings. That man was none other than the actual son of the real estate corporation's chairman, a notorious playboy, and the sole heir. It turned out Kevin was just a pawn, a spare tire, a placeholder in Vivian's larger scheme. She was playing both sides, using Kevin as a temporary sponsor, a lovesick fool she could easily manipulate, while her real target was the young heir. She used the gifts and trips Kevin provided to project an image of class and status to her real wealthy lover. I stared at the photos, the bank statements showing transactions between Vivian and other men, the proof of a duplicitous, fraudulent life. A whirlwind of emotions churned inside me. I didn't feel glee at Kevin's deception. I only felt a bitter, cutting irony. The betrayer had finally been betrayed. He had given up his wife, his daughter, his real family, to chase a mirage, a lie even bigger than the one he had created. He had been stabbed in the back by the very weapons he wielded best: deception and calculation. I sent the entire report to Mr. Mitchell. After reading it, he just shook his head and sighed. What a tangled web. The depths of the human heart are truly unfathomable. But Diana, this is good news for us. Once Kevin learns her true identity, he will completely fall apart. And when a man loses his love, his trust, and his money all at once, he becomes extremely dangerous, but also extremely prone to making mistakes. Just as Mr. Mitchell predicted, while Kevin was still floundering in the mess he'd made, still clinging to the illusion of a new life with his wealthy mistress, the next blows were already on their way. He was about to face not one, but two brutal truths simultaneously: a fatal blow to his career and a fatal blow to his fantasy of love. How would his collapse unfold? While Kevin was still frantically searching for me, maddened by the loss of his home, he clung to his last two lifelines, like a drowning man to a rotten plank: his rising career and his wealthy new fiancée. He believed that with the backing of his future father-in-law, the chairman of a major corporation, he could easily start over, even more successful than before. He had no idea that both lifelines were illusions, and I had left him no room for further delusion. As soon as I had the evidence of Kevin's immoral lifestyle, I drafted a letter, every word carefully chosen. I didn't write as a betrayed wife seeking revenge. That would make me seem emotional and unreliable. I wrote as a major business associate, an architect with a reputation and influence in the construction industry. The letter was sent directly to the chairman of the board and the entire senior leadership of the construction firm where Kevin worked, a company I had personally recommended him to. In the letter, I didn't mention any personal drama. There was not one word of complaint. I professionally and coldly stated that, as the person who had introduced and vouched for Mr. Kevin Thompson, I was deeply disappointed and concerned by his unethical behavior, which was inconsistent with the company's corporate culture. I emphasized that my personal reputation was tied to the person I recommended, and Kevin's actions were negatively impacting that trust. I attached a few pieces of light but devastating evidence. Several clear photos of him, and Vivian being intimate during work hours at company project sites, and some information about how he had used his position as project director to favor subcontractors with whom he had personal ties, causing financial losses for the company. This information was also precisely provided by the investigators. I concluded the letter with a heavy, unignorable warning. A large corporation like yours, which has always valued its image and integrity, surely would not want a senior manager with a complicated personal life and serious issues of professional ethics. This not only affects the internal work environment, but could also become a significant public relations risk, damaging the trust of your partners and clients. My letter was a time bomb, placed directly on the desks of the company's leadership. Kevin's company was a major international corporation where corporate culture, transparency, and employee image, especially for management, were paramount. They had a very strict code of conduct. They could not ignore a warning from a major, reputable partner like me. The next morning, when Kevin arrived at the office, his mind still in turmoil over the house, he was immediately summoned to HR. There, with no lengthy explanation and no chance to defend himself, they placed a termination letter in front of him. Effective immediately. The official reason was gross violation of the company's code of conduct and engaging in inappropriate behavior detrimental to the corporation's image and reputation. Kevin was stunned. He couldn't believe it. Just last week, he was a promising project director, respected by all, a rising star. Now, he was being fired in disgrace, without notice, without severance. The solid career foundation he had worked so hard to build largely on the back of my connections had crumbled in a single morning. He knew, without a doubt, that this was my doing. His fury and hatred for me surged. But he was powerless. He could only silently pack his personal belongings into a cardboard box and leave the office under the curious, whispering, and contemptuous gazes of his colleagues. Jobless. Stripped of his main source of income and social status. Kevin had only one lifeline left: Vivian and her chairman family. He stormed out of the building, grabbing his phone to call his lover, still holding on to the hope that she would be his refuge, that she would help him through this. He had no idea that the second gate of hell was just about to swing open. We would like to reiterate that the story you are following is a work of fiction, created for entertainment and to convey a message. All characters and events are imaginary, but the lessons about betrayal, greed, and the power of justice are very real. We hope this story provides you with valuable and profound insights. Fired in disgrace. Kevin was like a cornered animal, panicked and disoriented. He rushed out of the office building with only one name, one hope, in his mind: Vivian. She was all he had left. He had to see her immediately, tell her how I had framed him, and seek comfort and help from her and her powerful family. He drove like a madman to the luxury apartment building where Vivian lived, an apartment he had contributed a significant portion of the monthly rent for, viewing it as their future home. He rang the doorbell frantically, his heart pounding with the expectation that his beautiful lover would open the door, throw her arms around him, and say, "It's okay, baby, I'm here for you." But the person who opened the door was not Vivian. It was a tall, handsome man in an expensive silk robe, his hair slightly tousled, as if he had just woken up. Kevin froze. He instantly recognized him as Tristan Vance, the son of the real estate magnate, a man he often saw in business magazines. "Who are you? What are you doing in Vivian's apartment at this hour?" Kevin roared, a storm of jealousy, confusion, and betrayal erupting inside him. The man smirked, a look of pure contempt on his face, as if he were looking at a filthy insect that had disturbed his sleep. "Vivian's apartment? You're mistaken. This is my apartment, and she is my woman. Now, who the hell are you to be making a scene at my door?" Just then, Vivian emerged from the bedroom, also wearing a thin silk robe, her long hair cascading over her shoulders. Seeing Kevin's devastated face, she flinched for a second but quickly regained a cold composure. "Kevin, what are you doing here? I told you I wasn't feeling well today." "Vivian, what is this? Explain this to me. Why is he here?" Kevin screamed, pointing a shaking finger at Tristan, who was now leaning against the doorframe, enjoying the show. Vivian sighed wearily, as if Kevin's presence was a great annoyance. "All right, since you've seen it all, there's no point in hiding it. Tristan and I are in love. We're getting married. Whatever was between us, it's over." "Over? You just say it's over," Kevin pleaded, still unable to accept the brutal reality. "What about our baby? Our son? You promised me a family." At this, Vivian burst out laughing, a cold, Sharp laugh that felt like 1,000 shards of glass in Kevin's ears. A baby? Are you an idiot? I was never pregnant. It was all just a show. A test to see how much you loved me, what you were willing to sacrifice for me. A show? Why? Why would you lie to me? Kevin staggered back, the world spinning around him. Why? Vivian crossed her arms, looking at him with pity, as one would a pathetic loser. Because you're a fool, Kevin. Did you really think I loved you? I just wanted your money, or rather, your rich ex-wife's money. I needed you as a stepping stone to get into this world. But look at you now. You're broke, you've been fired. You're not even a shadow of Tristan. What value do you possibly have left that would make me want to continue the act? Every word from Vivian was a cruel, merciless knife twisting in Kevin's already bleeding heart. He stood frozen, speechless. The woman for whom he had abandoned his family, his morals, the woman he saw as his entire future, had only ever seen him as a toy, a tool to be used and then discarded without a second thought. He had been betrayed in a way that was far more painful and humiliating than the way he had betrayed me. Get out, Tristan Vance said, his voice a sharp command. Don't make me call security. The sight of you is disgusting. Vivian coldly turned her back, taking her new lover's arm and walking back inside without a single backward glance. The door slammed shut in Kevin's face, a dry, final sound that locked him out with the ugly truth and his crushing shame. He had lost everything. Wife, child, home, career, and now, his lover. He was, in the truest sense of the word, a complete nobody. A joke. He stumbled away, with nowhere to go. And the nightmare wasn't over. One final, crushing blow, a debt falling from the sky, was still waiting for him. After being abandoned by both his career and his lover, Kevin had only one place left to go, a place he never imagined he'd return to in such a pathetic state. The rundown apartment complex where his mother, Helen, now lived. He arrived looking like a wreck, with days of stubble on his face, his designer suit now wrinkled and stained. When Helen saw her golden child, the son she had always boasted about, return looking like a beggar, she was overcome with a mixture of pity and rage. Oh my God, Kevin, how did you end up like this? Where is Vivian? Where is her family? How could they let this happen to you? Mother and son sat in the cramped, damp room, a heavy, gloomy atmosphere hanging over them. They blamed each other. They blamed fate. But most of all, they blamed me. In their minds, I was the source of all their misfortune. It's all that she-devil's fault. She framed you. She set you up. Helen wailed, her face streaked with tears. Kevin sat silently, his eyes vacant, staring at the peeling wall. He knew I had only exposed the truth. The ones who had pushed him off the cliff were Vivian and his own greed. But he couldn't admit it. Blaming me was so much easier. As they wallowed in their despair and resentment, a mail carrier knocked on the door. He handed Helen a white envelope from a bank. She opened it with a flicker of hope. Maybe it was some good news, an insurance payout, something. But as she read the contents, her face turned as white as the paper. Her hands trembled, and the letter fluttered from her grasp to the floor. What? What is this? Debt? Where did this debt come from? Kevin bent down, picked up the letter, and read it. His eyes grew wide as a new wave of panic washed over his already broken spirit. It was an official notice of default from the bank. It stated that the unsecured personal loan of $250,000 in the name of Mr. Kevin Thompson was now past due on its first payment. As a result, the entire loan was being classified as a bad debt, and the bank would begin legal proceedings to collect $250,000. Mom, I never took out a loan. I swear I never signed any loan papers. Kevin screamed at his mother, his voice filled with confusion. And then, they both froze. A faint but deadly memory flashed in their minds. The thick file of documents Diana had given Kevin to sign. The loan application for her new project. They had assumed it was for a mortgage on the house. But no. It turned out that, in my intricate trap, I hadn't just hidden the consent to sell agreement. I had also included a complete, legally binding application for an unsecured personal loan in his name. With the excellent credit history I had built for him over the years, the bank had easily approved it. And that money? I had withdrawn it the moment it was dispersed, transferred it to another account, and vanished. I hadn't stolen from him. I had simply taken back a very small fraction of what he owed me for 8 years of my life. The debt of my labor, my love, my sacrifice. I considered it compensation for my lost youth, the child support he had never once voluntarily paid, and the price for his own stupidity and greed. This final shock was the blow that shattered any remaining hope they had. They weren't just broke and disgraced. They were now saddled with a massive, crippling debt that had appeared out of thin air. No house, no job, no money, and now drowning in debt. Their future was a pitch black, inescapable abyss. Kevin collapsed onto the cold floor and began to laugh. A wild, broken, insane laugh that was more tragic than any cry. He laughed at his own foolishness, at the collapse of his perfect plan, at the just punishment he now faced. He had lost completely, at the hands of the wife he had always looked down on, the woman he thought he could discard like old trash. The curtain had fallen, and the villains had paid a price so steep they would be paying it for the rest of their miserable lives. While Kevin and his mother sank deeper into their swamp of debt and despair, battling collection agencies and social scorn, my life with Annie was turning a new, bright, and peaceful page. The divorce hearing was quicker and cleaner than I ever expected. With the irrefutable evidence Mr. Mitchell presented of his adultery, his conspiracy to commit fraud, his utter lack of parental responsibility, Kevin and his lawyer had nothing to say. They sat in silence, their heads bowed in defeat. The judge's ruling was swift. I was granted full and sole legal and physical custody of Annie. Kevin, as an irresponsible father facing his own legal troubles, was stripped of all parental rights, granted only strictly scheduled, supervised visitation. But I knew, given his nature, he would never show up. To him, our daughter had only been a tool. Now that the tool was useless, he would discard it without a thought. The moment I held the final court order in my hands, I hugged Annie tightly, tears of happiness streaming down my face. Finally, she was truly and legally mine. I no longer had to fear being separated from her, or her being exposed to a toxic environment. Life after the storm was truly peaceful. I didn't rush into a new relationship or a massive business venture to prove myself. I knew what Annie and I needed most was time. Time to heal and to rebuild our new life on a foundation of honesty. I dedicated all my time to Annie, to make up for the emotional wounds and neglect she had endured. We traveled everywhere, from the sunny beaches of Florida to the fresh, cool mountains of Colorado. We explored the world together, creating beautiful new memories to replace the painful old ones. I wanted my daughter to know that even without a complete family, even without a father, she had a mother who loved her more than anything in the world. A mother strong enough to be her father, her mother, and her best friend. I also returned to my greatest passion, the one I had set aside for 8 years, architecture. But this time, I didn't work for any large firm or chase lucrative contracts. I used a portion of my money to establish my own small, boutique design studio. A charming, cozy, but highly creative space. I named it Andai, a combination of our names. I didn't take on large commercial projects or design soulless skyscrapers. I focused on more meaningful, community-oriented work. I designed, pro bono, for women's shelters, for schools in underprivileged areas, for community libraries. I wanted to use my talent and knowledge to create spaces that truly mattered, to bring joy and hope to those in need. The work didn't bring me enormous profits, but it brought me a joy, a serenity, and a sense of purpose that money could never buy. I had found myself again, the independent, strong, and compassionate Diana. Occasionally, I'd hear news about Kevin and Helen through old acquaintances. To pay off the bank and other debts, they had to sell off what little they had left. Kevin, once a dapper director, was now working odd jobs to survive, from manual labor at warehouses to driving for Uber. His once handsome face was now etched with hardship and exhaustion. Helen had aged dramatically, her health failing. She spent her days in their cramped apartment, lamenting her fate and cursing me. They were paying a heavy price for their actions. I no longer felt hatred or satisfaction, only indifference. Their lives, the path they had chosen, had nothing to do with us anymore. One weekend afternoon, the golden sun poured like honey over the large balcony of my penthouse. I sat on a comfortable swing chair, a book on contemporary art in my hand, glancing over at my daughter, who was happily coloring at a small wooden table nearby. Annie was now a cheerful, vibrant, and confident little girl. The shy, fearful look was gone. She had adapted quickly to her new international school and was a star student, loved by her teachers and friends. Her clear, innocent laughter was the most beautiful music, the cure for all my wounds. Looking at her, my heart filled with a deep and simple happiness. 8 years of marriage had taught me a painful lesson. but it had also shown me what was truly important in life. Not money or fame, but peace of mind, the freedom to be oneself, and the happy smiles of the ones you truly love. My phone rang. It was Mr. Mitchell. His voice was cheerful and light. "Congratulations, Diana. The criminal case against Kevin has reached its final verdict. With the evidence of fraud and conspiracy we provided, he received a significant prison sentence. And that Vivian woman didn't escape her charge as an accomplice. Justice has been fully served." I quietly said thank you and hung up. The news no longer disturbed my peace. Everything was truly over, a just and necessary end. The past was now in its proper place, a chapter read, a lesson learned, allowing me to move forward with a clear heart. I was no longer the betrayed wife, nor the famous architect. I was simply Diana, Annie's mom, a woman who had dared to rise from the ashes of deceit to find herself. I had proven that silence is not weakness. It can be the calm before a storm, the preparation for a spectacular comeback. And when any woman, no matter how gentle, is pushed to the edge and finds the courage to stand up with her intellect and her will, she can not only reclaim what is hers, but build a future far more brilliant than her past. I smiled, a truly serene and free smile. The breeze drifted in from the distant ocean, carrying the faint scent of flowers from my small garden. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I knew that the new road for my daughter and me, a road paved with sunshine and blossoms, had only just begun.